Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giridharadhari Jaya Vijana Vallabha Jaya Giridharadhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Rajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Rajajana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Ramo Hare Hare Radha Madhava Ki Jai Radha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Rayanam Namskrita Ramjayam Tiram Sarastam Vyasham Tatujayam Udirya Nastaprayesha Ashutityam Bhavyashtesvaya Bhagavati Utam Sloka Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki. Thank you very much for coming today. We are reading the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just before we begin, I'm a little bit looking at empty cushions in front of me. You're okay? Maybe Caroline, you go a little bit here, and just maybe Emmanuel a little bit more forward. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm in an empty room at the moment. Huh? It's okay. No, Emmanuel, please. It's okay. You're more comfortable. Brahmacharya is different. You know. Just a little bit. I mean, not that. Okay, so it is the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading from the chapter 17 entitled Maharaj Prithu becomes angry at the earth. Text 30. Okay. So it's go through Yena. Okay, sorry, I will just begin then. It's different versions. Yenaham atma yatanam vinirmita. Yenaham atma yatanam vinirmita. Yenaham atma yatanam vinirmita. Yenaham atma yatanam vinirmita. Tatra yatoyam guna sangha sangraha. Tatra yatoyam guna sarga sangraha. Tatra yatoyam guna sangha sangraha. Yam guna sang. So eva mam hantu muta yuda svarad. Sa eva mam hantu yuda svarad. Sa eva mam hantum. Sa eva mam hantum muta yuda svarad. So eva mam hantu muta yuda svarad. Sa eva mam hantu muta yuda svarad. Sa eva mam hantu muta yuda svarad. Upashtito nayam sharanam kamashraye. Upashtito nayam sharanam kamashraye. Upashtito nayam sharanam kamashraye. Upashtito nayam sharanam kamashraye. Prabhus, please. Yena hamatma yatananam vinimita. Tatra yatoyam guna sangha sangraha. Eva meman mantu hunda yuda svarud. Upachitonyam sharanam kamashraye. Aham atmayatanam vinimita. Yatra yatoyam guna sangha sangraha. So eva mam hanutam tayuda sarat. Upashtitonyam sharanam kamashraye. Mataji's. Yena hamatma yatanam vinimita. Tatro yatoyam gunasago sangraha. Sa eva mam hanutam udyayuda svarat. Upashtito nayam sharanam kamashraya. Just a note on the meter. I think there's not, maybe Brian, it's not here, but we were here for the Sanskrit course. And many of these verses in Srimad Bhagavatam follow a different meter. We know the rhythm, as Emmanuel was saying from Bhagavad Gita, and also from Brahma Samhita we tried here. But actually there's so many more, and many of these verses fall something in between. So I do apologize, because I think it was Kanai Krishna is an expert that the verse has the right rhythms. It doesn't quite follow Brahma Samhita, but I didn't have time. There is a way of checking all the syllables according to the meter. It's a little complicated at the beginning, but it's very beautiful. When he recites a prayer, a verse, then one feels one could be in the spiritual world because there is the right meaning behind. So my apologies, but for those who are naturally inclined, it's a fairly new thing. I haven't heard of so much in ISKCON, but to study from a devotee the level and the intricacy of Sanskrit is usual. He told us that in the temple in India, it was standard practice actually for the brahmacharis to repeat many, many verses, but with this right meter. Apparently the word shloka is not even right. That only refers to a certain meter. Okay, just to bear in mind. Okay, so we go word by word now, please. Yena, by whom? Aham, I. Atma, ayatanam, resting place of all living entities. Vinirmita, was created. Tatra, by the Supreme Lord. Yataha, on account of whom? Ayam, this. Guna sarga, sangraha, combination of different material elements. Sa, he, eva, certainly, mam, me, hantum, to kill. Uda yudaha, prepared with weapons. Svarat, completely independent. Upashtitaha, now present before me. Anyam, ava, sharanam, shelter. Kam, unto who? Ashraye, I shall resort to. So translation. The planet Earth continued. I think many of you have been coming to class, but just so you know, Prithu Maharaj is ready to attack Bhumi Devi, and she is now fleeing. The planet Earth continued. My dear Lord, you are the complete conductor of the material creation. You have created this cosmic manifestation and the free material qualities. And therefore you have created me, the planet Earth, the resting place of all living entities. Yet you are always fully independent, my Lord. Now that you are present before me and ready to kill me with your weapons, let me know where I shall go to take shelter, and tell me who can give me protection. Purport by His Grace Srila Prabhupada. The planet Earth herein exhibits the symptoms of full surrender before the Lord. As stated, no one can protect the person whom Krishna is prepared to kill, and no one can kill the person whom Krishna protects. Because the Lord was prepared to kill the planet Earth, there was no one to give protection to her. We are all receiving protection from the Lord, and it is therefore proper that every one of us surrenders unto Him. In Bhagavad Gita 18:16, the Lord instructs, Sarvadaman parityajya mamekam sharanam avraja aham tvam sarva papabhyo moksha yishyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, My dear Lord, whatever I have, even my mind, the center of all material necessities, namely my home, my body, and whatever I have in connection with this body, I now surrender unto you. You are now completely independent to act however you like. If you like, you can kill me. And if you like, you can save me. In any case, I am your eternal servant, and you have every right to do whatever you like. Once more the translation. The planet Earth continued, My dear Lord, you are the complete conductor of the material creation. You have created this cosmic manifestation and the three material qualities, and therefore you have created me, the planet Earth, the resting place of all living entities. Yet you are always fully independent, my Lord. Now that you are present before me and ready to kill me with your weapons, let me know where I should go to take shelter, and tell me who can give me protection. Beautiful. Om Gyante Marandasya Gyanana Salakaya Chakshur Milite Myena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shpatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sapadandikam Te Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasvati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is a beautiful verse in that Mother Earth, planet Earth, is pleading to Prithu Maharaj, as she understands that he is a representation of the Supreme Lord. And also in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, you will also hear that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also speaks on his lines of surrender. So today I wanted to talk about surrender and what it really means. It is one of those words that we hear almost daily in the temple in different connotations, right? You have to surrender. Hey, Prabhu, get on, do this. You have to surrender. But it was... Sometimes we have, like in any groups or this, sometimes we have a word that's taken and then it's maybe a little bit overused. Like in general society, maybe the word love is a little overused. Then you might be, oh, come on, don't talk to me about that subject. What do you really mean there? So with this word surrender, there are many different meanings, and I wanted us to discuss this, but also in the second part, try to understand how is surrender applicable to our lives. I haven't done this for a while, but I will go a little bit interactive. I look at the one responsible for the music. Is there a microphone I can use that I can move with a little bit? Thank you very much. I just need a moment. Wait, one moment, Robin, thank you. So in terms of full surrender, Ananda Krishna also mentioned this. It's hard for us to really following completely their footsteps, but it's wonderful as an example. Can someone think, someone mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam or the scriptures which showed a sign of surrender? Surrender. Oh, Robin, you have the microphone. You can speak directly into it. Yeah, please.
I think a strong example is Draupadi in the assembling hall, where she was get mistreated and then finally she just surrendered to Krishna and was getting protected.
Wonderful example. So Draupadi, in Sanskrit the word is Sharanagati, this word of surrender, and Draupadi is often used as a very good example where in her most dangerous position for a woman is to be exposed in such a way, sort of treated in an assembly. So after she plead to grandfather Bhishma, to her husbands, to everyone else who could not, for moralistic or dutiful reasons, help her, she cried out to Krishna. And it is said that, I said, why did you come like right at the very moment? At this moment she's already been disgraced by being pulled in by the hair by Dushasana, the brother of Krishna. She's been pulled in and yanked through an assembly of people. Even if that was to happen today in the temple or even in the royal courts, it would be, like, whoa, it would reach the headlines, right? Somewhere along the lines, let alone back then. So she's already reached this stage. And at that moment, where they're literally trying to dethrone her, then Krishna comes. So the question is, why did Krishna wait for so long? And there is that reply that Krishna waited until she called out to him, until that point of Sharanagati, that point of surrender unto him. So that moment he came immediately, but it had to go through a series. Wonderful example. Someone else, another example? Subal, please.
Bali Maharaj.
Bali Maharaj.
Vamanadev took 2 steps over the whole universe, which was his property, sorry. And then he put the 3rd step on the head of Bali Maharaj.
Yes, because there was nowhere else, right? But he surrendered himself. Beautiful. Emmanuel, you also had a...
Maharaj Ambarish, when Durvasa Muni came to him and got very angry because of a very small reason, and then he created his fire demon, and Maharaj Ambarish just stood before him with folded hands, and then the Sudarshan Chakra came and...
It's like fearless surrender. Yes. Wonderful. And who do we have here? Didn't hear you. Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj is also such a devotee that one can describe his as a prayerful surrender. If you go through the prayers, I think it's in the 7th canto, right? He never says, really, please protect me. He has so much devotion and understanding that it's just his meditation on the Lord. It's it's not like, help! They're about to stick me in a pot of hot water, the snakes are coming or throwing me off a cliff. It's very amazing in one sense, right? Because the dedication, the devotion, the faith is so strong, the surrender, that he has just this sort of one pointed view on the Lord. So it's an interesting view. You can also see Kunti Maharaj, despite all the obstacles, she also more and more in her surrender to the Lord, to always bring her closer to the Lord no matter what happened externally. And then when we hear all these examples, we can think of Prahlad Maharaj is sitting on the altar, and he was able, but it's harder when we come into difficult times, what that surrender is. So that was going to be our brainstorm today. Maybe I annoyed the cameraman, I'm sorry. Just to think for a moment, what does surrender mean to you? What does the word surrender mean? Give ourselves. Give ourselves. Okay. Give ourselves to you, right? What do you mean? Give ourselves to service? What would you give ourselves to? Everything. To everything. To Maya also?
No,
to Krishna.
I mean, you can surrender to many things, but I guess we are talking surrender to Krishna.
I mean, this is to Krishna. But you also use the word everything. That's also interesting.
I mean, that you can surrender everything like around you, like yourself, your thoughts, your actions.
Okay, wait, go. What do you say? Thoughts, actions? I try not to move too much. Thoughts, so surrendering your thoughts. That's a little troublesome sometimes. Sometimes we think things we're not sure we really wanted to have thought. But we said, okay, in Kali Yuga it's okay as long as we don't act out. But this is interesting that we said that your thoughts, actions. Something for you. What is surrender to you? So Mr. Karma College.
I done similar things, surrendering anything that like your desires or wishes, just
So
give them up and
desire, okay, your wishes. Your desires and wishes. Giving them up, did you say?
yeah.
Giving up. I could hear you. It was, I mean, it was working.
Giving up one's own free will to Krishna.
What does that mean to God?
Yeah, the independent mentality to do things as I like, as I think it's okay.
To that I want to give a little quote which I found really interesting. When Brahman was sitting on the lotus flower, he heard the voice tapa tapa, and there was nothing to renounce, so he renounced independent attitude. It's so strong.
This is connection to Subhasa, right?
Yeah.
Giving up your desires, wishes, giving up one's own free will. I'm sorry. A good teacher. Something more?
I would also say to follow.
To follow. To follow what?
Instruction, whatever the other person or an idea. Or,
Who? To follow who?
yeah, Krishna in this case, yeah.
But you mean through instruction?
Through instructions, yeah, for example.
I was thinking it's similar to giving up one's free will, but perhaps follow the will of God or of Krishna. To me it's slightly different, but do you know what I mean in that difference?
Explain how you believe.
Well, one is an absence, right? You're giving up your free will, and the other one is a receiving of will from. Yes.
Surrender is now. I heard a story yesterday from Radhanath Swami about the Brahmin Avanti from the 11th canto. It's very nice story about surrender. It's amazing. And this was like surrender is mean like take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna at every situation in your life, because he was abused for so much people, and he takes shelter. So this is like surrender.
What does it mean to take shelter?
It's like because he was really he have no one, because everyone hate him, like was really from the society, was like threw away from society. So he really have only Krishna. He realized that he have only Krishna, so he takes shelter on him.
So he was abandoned by everyone that he knew. So then, what was his shelter?
Shelter that he always thinking that Krishna. I have Krishna. Maybe I have nothing now, but I have Krishna. So this. Who has something?
To let go of control.
Ooh, let go of control. Does that tie in? It ties in a little bit with Subhasa, right? Let go of control. What does that mean to you, Carolyn? go of control.
To surrender.
To surrender means let go of control. But a practical example, like
Yeah, like if things happen to you, and it's maybe a little bit hard or something, and you're just thinking and thinking and thinking about it, and let go of this, and it's Krishna's will. It happens like this. So I just let it go, and it must have some meaning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was very interactive. Put my chalk down. Try not Sorry, Robin, for making you work so hard this morning. You thought you could sit in the corner, maybe. Okay. No, it's okay, because I want that people see the wonderful ideas, and I try not to injure myself at the same time. So we have some wonderful examples there, and I found some beautiful examples too from Shastra, excuse me. So, from the 4th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, so this is 4.868. It says, this is in the purport of by Srila Prabhupada. Sharanagati, or surrender, means acceptance or firm faith that wherever the surrendered soul lives, he is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never alone or unprotected. So in this way, I would say, from this, it's like acceptance. Yeah, it says acceptance or firm belief that we are protected by him. I like that not so many of you, we didn't really go towards protection because we're not in imminent danger right now in that sense, but on that level there is that aspect, right, of surrender. It's like as a child surrenders to their parent, they know in some troubled state that mama or papa is there. You'll see sometimes when a child sort of runs into the skirt of the mama, it's that level of I'm protected, and they start to smile again. It's a little bit on this analogy here, that we're looked after, that we're okay. Next I found from CC, Madhya Leela 22:100. It talks about as someone who is fully surrendered having 6 characteristics. It's nice because we picked up on some, right? So number 1, the devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for rendering of transcendental loving service. And this is also from Nectar of Instruction, right? So everything that is favorable, whatever will bring you up. So if Caroline likes to play madanga, it's good if she acquires a madanga. So you can practice, right? Number 2, he must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is your point here, which is about giving up your... it's not actually, to be honest, it's not quite giving up your desires or wishes. It's giving up things that you know are not helpful for you. For some of us, it was, it could be from smoking to drinking or whatever else. But for others, as you go deeper into spiritual life, it could just be, for example, you are with some people and it may be a little bit of a negative mood or different things, and you may just decide to step away from it because it doesn't help your consciousness in that moment. It's different if a friend is opening up to you, but it just may be something you don't feel quite right there, so you just say, okay, this is not going to help me afterwards. For some of us who stay in such a situation, it takes a lot of work then to bring the consciousness back to Krishna. So it's like this. Number 3, again, a devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection, and being firmly convinced of this is called faith. 4, the devotee should accept Krishna as his supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend only on Krishna, considering him the only protector. Again, this word. And number 5 here, this goes to, who made this point about independence? Subal and Robin, and also Kyra there. So self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, and he acts and thinks as Krishna desires. One very important point on this is sometimes it can be in a spiritual movement that one then says, okay, I just allow the Lord, Krishna, I just depend on him. And that means I just basically wait to see what he comes. But actually it's suggested, and I'm sure we've heard, some of us have heard this, that we act in a way that everything depends on us. But know that it's actually all depending on Krishna. This is a modern terminology would be self-empowerment, but in our terminology it's basically that we're not sitting there and basically waiting for the Lord or Krishna to do everything for us. Internally there may be something that we understand we need to do. Like a Sankirtan devotee cannot wait in his van and hope somebody approaches him, right? Like this. Maybe it happens here occasionally, but generally you have to go through a little bit sometimes of, okay, even heaviness, right, to get up. For most people, it's not so easy. We've heard this, to wake up for Mangala, and Nanda Krishna made this point yesterday. It's not so easy in the morning, but we think, okay, let's give it a good go. And most people need an alarm to do this. We're not mostly like, oh, we wait to see when the Lord wakes us up. Maybe we wouldn't wake up until 12 o'clock or something, So it's like, really having this understanding that we are responsible for to live in a conscious way, to understand, okay, actually whatever we do is depending on him. But we don't sit there like passive individuals, right? We also have an understanding. Okay, another one from Nectar of Instruction. Maybe you won't remember this one. It says, surrender means that one has to become confident. So we become confident. The devotee is confident. It says the devotee thinks, Krishna will surely protect me and give me help for the successful execution of devotional service. This is called confidence. Now that level of confidence, I believe, is meant to be quite reassuring. That it's not just that we are like, surrender, I don't know what it means, like, what? Where am I going? It means like, okay, at this point that I feel this, the Lord will protect me in the ways that I need when I call upon him. It's like confidence. It's not surrender, as occasionally I've heard it in terms of, don't really want to do it, but like somebody said, maybe it's, part of life, right? Prabhupada also says in a lecture, which I thought is very important at this point, from Bhagavad Gita, as a lecture on Bhagavad Gita 4:34. He says, the surrender means full knowledge. After scrutinizingly studying all the processes of self-realization or transcendental realization, when one comes to the perfectional point, he understands that Vasudev Krishna is everything. So the surrender, which is very important in this context, is knowledge. When we have knowledge of who we are, of who the Lord is, by studying the scriptures, then we can understand the process. This knowledge gives us a certain way forward. I say that because sometimes maybe in hearing the word realization, other things, often people may assume it will just come at this moment. But this path that we follow usually is that we read many things and we take things in a different context. Like in the modern material world, we don't hear so much about surrender. And if we do, it's in quite a negative context, that, you have to, mostly should be independent and do your thing and not listen to anyone and, you know, like just get your stuff done. But in this context of knowledge, that knowledge is powerful in that it can give us some faith. It is said that with the Srimad Bhagavatam at the very beginning, one doesn't have to read it with complete faith, because we may not be at that moment, but we read it with an open mind, with the idea that theoretically it could be true. Yeah? So theoretically we could, and in that way it gives us that sort of level of adjustment. What do I understand here? What's going on? Okay, and my last quote today. This was similar to the others, but a little bit more detailed. This is again from a lecture that Prabhupada gave in Ahmedabad, where some of my family is from, December the 10th, 1972. Surrender means to accept favorable things. How I can make progress towards Krishna. And pratikula means rejecting unfavorable things which are not very congenial, so not very useful for my progress to Krishna consciousness. And then also it says, and have firm faith that Krishna will give me protection. Krishna will give me protection. On the theme of protection, what is it if we're not in immediate danger on an army zone or a war zone? Yeah, Gopi Gita needs, the microphone needs protection from Gopi Gita. But what is it that we need protection from? What is it that sometimes we're faced with that we maybe from Maya, from Maya, Subal. How does this take place in a, because Maya is quite large, how does this take place in a sort of daily basis? Can someone think of an example of what they, okay, Robin has his hand up. Thank you.
Maybe from the onslaughts of my mind, which is pulling me somewhere, which is not helpful.
Yeah, like everywhere. It says the mind, if I said, okay, let's go to the North Pole. In a minute, we can be in the North Pole with the polar bears and penguins. The mind is so quick. It throws us off in all different directions. So yes, that protection certainly should be there from the mind. How else does Maya or the illusory energy, maybe, where would we need protection? You are the closest to the microphone. False pride. Where can false pride come up in our environment here, for example? And this false pride can lead to one's downfall, right? Because pride is the opposite of humility. So, tough topic, humility. Humility. Burujan Prabhu gives, sorry, I've given this example before, but he says humility is not low self-esteem. It's not thinking that we are the worst. It is actually understanding that the Lord is everything to us. And in that position, we think more of the Lord and less of ourselves. When you have low self-esteem, you just think, oh, I'm so bad, I'm this, I'm that. One part of that is you're just thinking of the I, but the second part is it doesn't help you. One feels quite miserable after such thoughts. The humility is something else. For me, in particular, I think it's like a very fine quality that one has to develop. Thank you, Emmanuel. Yeah, develop. Entwickeln. I had this word entwickeln. I like these German words sometimes. It's very nice. It somehow feels much better than entwickeln. Yeah, so to basically, you see what's happening and pray. There's we're born but with sort of a good level of humility, but mostly many of us have to fight with this low self-esteem and get that part of humility, which is actually a more sweet quality, that everything is falling under His control and anything that helps can give. Everything okay? Alles gut? What's the German word for humility? Humility? Demut. Demut, yeah. Demut, yes, certain words that we have. Very nice. Any other thoughts on how protection may be needed? Sometimes we hear this, we have war against Maya, need to be protected on all sides. Generally, we say we need protection in so many regards, right? Protection to feel nourished and taken care of, that we stay on the path. Protection, maybe of the body, if we are overeating or lots of prashadam, or on just not taking care of ourselves, right? This is protection also in many different ways. Protection for our mind, that how Robin brought us this point that it flickers in every direction, right? And sometimes at one moment we're even convinced that it's true. So what part of it is it? Like, we don't want to be like mindless sheep, right? As we follow a religious faith. On the other side of it, this level of surrender is a very deep aspect of most religious paths that we will follow. This element of surrender. And in this way, it's sort of practical, especially for me, it becomes much more of an internal orientation. This acceptance, like in this purport by Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I surrender my house, he says this, namely my home, my body, whatever. He doesn't mean in that context that he becomes like a wanderer on the street, right? He still stays in his home and keeps this. But it's this element internally that whatever you will with me, then please, as your will is, let that be. One question is, how do you know, how do you know if you're following Krishna's will and not Maya's will? Where's the microphone?
Yes, the devotee could ask a few other advanced devotees, or maybe the spiritual master, if this path is right.
Yes, so spiritual master, where else could you go to see? Scriptures? Thank you, scriptures. What were you going to say?
To see if it's for serving Krishna.
To see if it's for serving Krishna. Yes. And an example what's not spoken so much, but Bhakti Vasudev Swami also mentioned this, is that it may be you have questions that little bit, you think, it's a little bit too small to ask your Guru Maharaja. It's just, what do you do? Should you go to him for everything? There are some gurus, very good, you can just text them and then they write back to you straight away. But you may think, come on. And so it's recommended that one also tries to make friendships, of course, within Krishna consciousness. Bhakti Vasudev Swami gave this nice example. It's like, try to tell that friend or that new friend something about yourself, and then see if it's then repeated to everyone in a few days or whatever that follows up, or whether it's kept to themselves or kept in a way that you can understand. And in this way, you slowly, we do it all the time, I guess, I hope it's okay to say, but we sort of test each other in our relationships, right? And when you have a good friend, you can then also open up to them about something that's concerning you. It's like nectar of instruction, part of the 6 love and exchanges, opening, revealing one's mind in confidence, and then also hearing from the other side. But this takes a little bit of art. Sometimes devotees come to me and say, but I told them this, and this, and they didn't really understand. I'm like, wow, you told them your whole life, like heavy incidences to some stranger, basically. Like, one has to, choose the people that we go to, and over one time one sees how that helps. And just to put the herring in the work, what if an authority is abusive? What does one do? Because one can say, okay, you must follow your authority. How can you safeguard yourself and others if something is going off the trail? Because they may say, follow.
Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport that if the authority commits abominable activities and loses discrimination, it can be given up also. And then one can go to the next authority, the higher authority, and talk with that person about it.
Yeah, so in one sense, if you are with, it may be said that an authority may give us an instruction, and the mind might just say no, don't want to do it, right? So one really has to be, sort of intelligent and try to understand both sides of the situation, right? Is it just because the mind says no, or is there actually a reason why, based on the instruction? And generally it may be, okay, I just have to try to accept what I'm told and continue on this. But there are examples in all religious movements where an authority maybe has abused their power, and then that can lead to a bad reaction if we are following that authority. The other basis is to see if what the words are given are based on any sort of scriptures or things that follow with our moral grounds or, dutiful way. And definitely, as Subal Gopal said, we maybe ask someone else. It's not that one should question every single thing, right? But some moment, if something goes to an extreme level, then one should be careful of this. I say this in regard to surrender, because sometimes it was like a case of surrender means you should be totally submissive, you should just do what you're told without a thought or a feeling. But this, as far as one reads, is not the case. One is doing it with consciousness, with acceptance, with confidence in the Lord, and with also that knowledge of what that person is, is being told or being told to surrender to, right? It's not like everything shuts down. Prabhupada, this quote of being conscious means to be awake and alive, right? It's not a case of numbing down and to, sometimes one may need to numb down the mind, like in the morning time when one wakes up and the mind says, no, don't do it. Why do you want to do that? One sort of, come on, give it a break, this is different. But like this act of surrender, if one looks into it, it should be a very deep internal orientation. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings this, there is a very deep level of realization that comes with this. Just like Srila Prabhupada on the boat, the Jaladuta, when he's having his heart attacks, and he asks the Lord, he says that he is his puppet, whichever way he wants to play him, or this is okay. It's a very deep level of surrender in this way. So artificial, one cannot impose this, but one can work with one's own inner orientation on this. Make sense? It's like this. Because if we artificially impose a way of being, then we're not authentic to the state that we are. Most of us are on a path, right? We're developing our way. And it can be, and I've seen this with many young devotees, that I want to surrender everything, but I can't. So I'm giving up. It's too much, it's too much. But if we understand actually the level of surrender in terms of acceptance, accepting the Lord as helping us, it could also be, Krishna, I surrender to the fact that you know better than I do, and I'm very confused right now. Please, in my surrender, help me at this moment. An example of a desperate surrender is Gajendra, an elephant, right? He tries his best to fight this crocodile, yeah? He tries his best. And at one moment, it's just too much. It's too much. And in his desperation, he remembers the Lord. And this is often an example for many. We remember, but at one moment, one sees it's never too late. It's never too late. In that moment, he stops the bat and offers his flower to the Lord. Please take this. And I've also experienced in my own life, in a small example, that sometimes, as Carolyn says, sometimes everything gets overwhelming in the thoughts and the mind, and one just sometimes steps in front of the Lord, and through prayer, that very idea of those troubles sort of melts away. It's the surrender. Okay, Lord, you're in charge. Please you help or guide me in the way of what I need to do in this situation. The example I usually give is as someone who some people take some guidance from, I'm often not sure. You know, you have to be quite subtle. Should I approach or shouldn't I approach? Sometimes I pray, Lord, if I'm meant to speak to this devotee about this maybe difficult topic, please put this person in front of me. Otherwise, let it be that, you know, it's not this, it's small. And sometimes then the Lord arranges that this person who would never knock on my door comes and knocks on my door. It's happened to me a couple of times. And other times it's happened that this person who I usually see every day is out of my eyesight. Little small things like this. Because actually, when one has one service, and it's to do with guiding others, it is always a ground of being careful that one's own thoughts and feelings and wishings don't come forward. But what does God wish in this situation? What is useful for this person to hear? And in this mood that when we serve, at the very beginning of our service, we pray to the Lord. In the middle, we pray to Him to accept it. And also at the end. In that mood, if one prays, I've had a few examples when I'm sitting in front of someone, I'm not quite sure what to say, or I think I know why. But I pray, please, you help me, Lord. Sometimes I say things that I'm quite surprised by. And I reflect and I think, maybe the Lord was helping me to be an instrument. One is always a little unsure, right? But especially when that person responds in a productive way, and it wasn't necessarily that you just told them what they thought they had to hear, but sometimes it's like this. A message comes forward in this way. So it's this also surrendering unto God's will seems to be a very much internal process which will then manifest externally in our daily lives. If in our spiritual lives we are feeling always that stuck or we can't move forward, then usually in this process of consciousness we can often free ourselves. You know, through prayer we surrender. This level of surrender, it says, is the level, this level of surrender is then how much also the Lord can then reciprocate with us. It's like if somebody always has troubles, there's some troubles, but one has to assess, are they ready to hear any possible solutions? And sometimes you'll find, often I find with people with the most trouble, they're not willing to really, hear a path. So then what can you do? There's other people with small troubles, and then you just give them one or two solutions, like Narayani sometimes. Oh, just have this. Okay, why don't you try this and this? And then maybe a couple of days, oh yeah, I tried it, this helped, thank you. It's sort of helpful in that situation, but there is a level of surrender also when we go to other people, right, for guidance, because you're literally saying, "Oh, I'm not quite sure what is there and what's needed in this part." On the other side, it said that we should be independent. Was it independently thoughtful? Thank you very much. Independently thoughtful. So not that we're just, sort of mindless. We're thinking of what is coming up and what's processing. This is why it's very nice here. At the moment in Simhachalam, I asked, it's always a bit of a risk when you ask people to give their views, but so many of you came forward and expressed some part of this vision of surrender, which means that you're thinking and moving with this. This very element of thinking and feeling helps us to think of what's happening in our life. Now, how we use that is different. It could be like, okay, I decided it's too much, I surrender to material existence. So that means I want the best house, and the best car, and the best partner, and the best everything, And we'll meet many people like this, huh? And they receive that. They receive that because that's their motivation. But if our consciousness, which is definitely in one sense harder to think, what is beyond this body and this life? What is beyond even my thoughts and feelings and actions? What is my true meaning of my life? The ultimate goal of life. What is this? What is that part? If I have this in mind, what have I done today to help me on this search for the ultimate goal of life? If we have that as a conscious thought daily, then often our thoughts and actions will naturally go in this direction. Otherwise, also as religious practitioners, we can lose this idea of spiritual thoughts and actions, because we then get lost in what's so-called the mundane, you know? The service becomes like just an activity, just an element of work. How to keep it with thought, like how would the Lord like me to deliver this service? And the mind will be like, no, I'm too tired to do this, but okay, come on. Krishna, if I'm meant to do it like this, please help me in this situation. And it comes in all different directions. On a weekly basis, I have conversations with so many different types of people, and sometimes it's bewildering, and other times it's very rewarding. Because the idea behind it is that spirituality is not just stuck with one type of person or one age or one part. It flows beyond us, right? And whatever capacity we have, that is also a use in Krishna's service. So on your point, I come back to this at the end, giving up your desires and wishes. What if you have a spiritual wish? Should you give that up also? Is that part of surrender? There's no right or wrong answers. Please feel free to, you're not sure?
I don't know. What is a spiritual wish?
Don't know. You may want to be... Is it spiritual to be the best Sankirtan devotee? Is that spiritual or is that... What would you say? A Sankirtan devotee there, Subal. If someone wished, I want to be the best Sankirtan devotee.
Depending what's the motivation behind it.
Yes. I want to distribute the most books.
For being in the center point of attention and being better than others, then it's not so beneficial. Maybe.
Not beneficial, okay. Yeah, so you could have a wish like this, spiritual, and your desires or wishes may have something aligned, to your inner core. You may be, you're washing pots or something, you're like, but actually I want to be a Sankirtan devotee. So you could say, oh, but no one told me to do it, or I don't know, there's not enough time or space. So I surrender. My surrender means I give that all up. It could be relevant, but normally what we see now, especially in the last 10 years, I think of the movement, this element of developing your wishes in correlation to Krishna. Yeah, or your desires, like what? And mostly it goes to your propensity. Like, maybe, for example, Subal, I hope you don't mind me using this example, it's not, but maybe he's mostly known as a Sankirtan devotee, yeah, more or less so, but then he was asked, please could you also help to look after the brahmachari ashram? So, okay, and then he was asked, maybe you could be temple commander for a little while too. It's like, okay, I'm not sure, but if that's Krishna's desire, it didn't look like, yes, that's what I've always aspired to do. But then after some months, we had a short conversation, and it was actually like you were not sure that it would be something that fit, but it did somehow, or it gave some, level of, serving the Lord. So in this way, so we have that level of some diversion in the conversation. So that level of desire and wishes, it's not that we want to squash our whole propensity. I'm sure that's not entirely what you meant, but that one is allowed to fulfill. And if you have a skill in it, it's very good. Sometimes I encourage some, like Anuttara Mataji. She has a beautiful kirtan voice, Or maybe sing a little more. It could just be quietly for the Lord, but sometimes it's nice to do that. I'm a trained designer, and when I came to the temple, I thought I'd give this all up and I just make garlands the rest of my life. I really did think this. I managed it for maybe half a year to make garlands, but someone was like, come on, maybe there's something more. What do you mean? There's nothing more than garlands, but they said, but maybe there's some other service you can also try to render, and also give the other people a chance to make garlands. And somehow over the time it came up to design a book, and I thought, okay, I've learned this, but it's not sure if I want to. But one engaged, and I realized in that moment, I really felt this level of, this is my service to the Lord. Like I was just in there. It was a very beautiful meditation for me. Someone else, if I told him to sit in front of a computer for that long to do something, like, oh, come on, like, please don't make me do that. But one understood, okay, this is in line with maybe some sort of wish. It was a little unconscious wish, but with that propensity that was also part of the surrender. And also, when you design a book, you have to be very patient in what you do, which is a quality I need to cultivate. So, because everything should be then exactly aligned, not just one page, but all 300. So, yeah. Is it okay? Just saying, if things may come up, it's not a moment of squashing down. It's a moment of trying to understand with someone that you have some trust in to see, okay, how can that maybe be used in Krishna's desire? You have a surrender. Pointer. No, you should not surrender. Humor. A point on surrender. Yeah. Yes, so Ramananda, our head pujari, surrenders. I made a joke yesterday that we should change Ramananda's title to head of fire, because he's also secretly always running to the heating when there is a problem, right? You won't understand how many times there may be a problem with the heating and he runs. It's like the back end of the fire, some problem that goes on. But this is also, sometimes we surrender to the things that maybe are not exactly what we need to do, but it's a balance up of both. Huh? Most of us probably don't like to brush our teeth or do things. Or we, surrender to the purpose of maintaining the body. So those level is that. But surrender, essentially, I do believe is a very deep and a full positive outlook, right? You've missed the rest. I just have a... You heard everything. Okay, thank you very much. So being confident in the fact that Krishna will protect us, trying to accept that we are always protected by the Lord, just to call out for Him. Where we have maybe some doubts, we maybe read a little bit more into Shastra, into knowledge, speak in confidence with someone that you trust. Hopefully we build more and more in a daily way to a deep level of surrender. That's the conclusion. Any other points or anything else? You were quiet. Thank you so much for being very interactive. This is it's very useful also for one to see that we practically can use things in our daily lives.
Can we ask a question?
Oh, yes, please.
So, my question is, how can we keep enthusiasm over the years, like 5, 10, 20, 30 years, to have this faith that if I do this, Krishna will reciprocate? Because there are many things that can be discouraging in devotional service or can deviate us from the path of pure devotional service.
Thank you. It's a very wonderful question. Enthusiasm. It's very important in spiritual life. And often we see some older devotees looking very infused, be it from Suchitra or Ramananda. They're very enthusiastic sometimes in what they do. And we know that they've been practicing for some years, 20 plus years, right? So how do we keep this? Personally, when I first came to the temple, I was told I was over-enthusiastic from the English yatra, where a lot is happening, and I had a million ideas. So I was like, okay, and I didn't really understand what they meant, but I thought I should keep my mouth shut, right? Until there was Bhakti Shastri, Stadi Purusha Prabhu, and I said, well, what is this point on enthusiasm? What does it mean? And he said the enthusiasm should be something always internal. That we are internally infused in trying to bring ourselves closer to Krishna. not just an external manifestation. So we could be like, come on, let's do this and this, but we're not really feeling it, we're just saying it. But the enthusiasm from inside is like, oh, how would I like to serve the Lord today? What can I do? How would this work for me? Where there are troubles in our time, the best way I've dealt with them is to bring them to the consciousness. That this was troubling for me. I couldn't really deal with this. I didn't understand why, for example, most things I hear are some interactions with some devotees or authority or something that comes up. It could be some experience, but so it's to bring that consciously up, but to try to work through it too. Not just, this happened in 1903 and therefore I'm like, you work through, okay, this happened. What were my realizations to this point? What was the level of maybe karma in this point, and what would I like to be different in mine? It often is that one steps away from a situation which isn't helping one. And also at that point, when we had some troubling times, it's usually the point, right, where enthusiasm goes. It's a little bit like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? It could be any aspect. So usually you need to sort of rebuild. Mahatma Prabhu may use this word, a little bit of self-care. Prabhupada says, if it's troubling, we should sit down in a temple and chant, right? If we have trouble, to sit down in a temple and chant. And a friend of mine spoke to me actually. In her time, she decided she would literally sit down and make that time just to chant for a period of time. That's one way. The other way is then to pick up, what is needed? Have I been looking over my own needs? Have I been what is it that are my needs? Have I taken care of the practical things, what I eat, exercise, and have I looked over my spiritual needs? The reading something which makes me feel connected. Because there may be something that we're told to read, but often it's also said there should be something that we read regularly that gives us a bit of life, that we can understand. Like for me, I don't do as much as I like, but somehow Nectar of Devotion. When I read it, I'm like, okay, good. Somehow it always worked for me. But I know that's unusual. It's not other people's go-to book. But those parts, spiritual life also, are we in our own bubble too much? Do we not have the association that we require? These parts, that it could be sometimes we need just some moments. Some people may need moments where just walking in nature together without talking. I see some with the Prabhus there, some sport or physical activity goes on, which they need. For others, it may be some sort of book reading with some sort of association on this thing. And on that line, when we do the things that actually trigger us in a positive way, it usually builds up the enthusiasm again. And this is the way it keeps. The other part too is a mentality. Please accept this. When Narahari speaks of time, she's like, we just had a little bit of trouble before. But the thing is, we stayed focused on the Lord. He is ultimately there, and He ultimately looks over us. When she says it, the words have a different weight, because I truly believe she walks the talk. She really has that. If you go into some incidences, one really understands that actually, she sort of was something not quite as it should be going, but okay, that is there. But let our focus remain on Him and on our service to Him. This is the point I was trying to raise to Prabhu. Therefore, it's very important in spiritual life to find a service also that appeals to you. Ramananda Gopal, dear husband, told me that he went through many different services in a temple. I think he said he looked after the cows at one point, or this, or cleaning, before he got to be a pujari that fit a lot of his inner orientation, if I can say. It's not that maybe it just comes up like this. It's that we should also strive in different things in our life. And you'll see the enthusiasm then grows with that. And I believe we all have our own propensity, and then also therefore our dharmic point of what one can fulfill. A conscious move. Was that okay, Darika? Was there any other?
Yeah, we recently read the story of Bharat Maharaj. He went to the forest, was absorbed in meditation, but still Maya finds a way to get you attached to something.
Oh,
material.
like the deer, the deer. Maya finds a way in every direction. It's also true. We are somewhat more protected in the temple, but still Maya is also present because we're not fully realized, right? That level, I would say, and protection from this is why we are by Lord Nishingadev. Nishingadev, help us, and to protect us from Maya. And more than that, to recognize when we're in Maya, that's the worst point, or if we're in that situation, like, no, it's not, it's fine, it's all right, I need to be on my phone for 20 hours, just, something spiritual. It's like this, trying to realize, okay, what is that level of what's pulling us down? This is when I also think we need protection from these phones. I do believe that, not just because of the race, but I've known so many people, they have the intention to maybe go on Facebook or something to listen to some kirtan or music, and in the end, for 1.5 hours, they're scrolling. Often it's maybe some spiritual thing, but if you ask, well, what did you hear, or what was it? And we're, I'm not sure. This is like the time has just gone. The time has just sort of run away, which is something that we didn't have around 7-8 years ago. So it's that part where the different parts, and it's like a phone or a TV. When we block ourselves off or down, it feels like the consciousness goes into some lower state, and then in that moment where we're too sleepy or too moved, then the enthusiasm is also lost. Sort of one has to then rebuild it up again. Go against Maya in all the different directions. In this way, get enough sleep, but not too little sleep. Have enough to eat, but not too little, right? It's like regulation. Ensure that you chant and that the service you do is engaging you, but not overburdening you, that you're flat. It's like a whole, isn't it? Hopefully it builds. Stays in this way. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Thank you so much, especially for your interaction with the class. I hope there were some relevant points for you in your spiritual lives. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.